we can see the same issue when texting or messaging the code. If you have a huge code base, it is not really possible. How could you see the change in your code from today versus 3 months ago or maybe a year? What if you make a mistake or file a bug and want to go back to a previous version and change it? You need to have record on different version of working code. So that's why we need a tool that can keep track our code and allow us to collaborate easily with our team members. So what's a VCX? VCX is an acronym of version control system. It's allow multiple developer to work on the same project and manage the change over time. These systems are critical to ensure that everyone has access to the latest code and also known as a revision control and source control management. It's it is a software utility that checks and manages change to a file system, such as addition, deletion, and modification, applied to files and directories. Today, we will be looking at one of the most popular software industry, VCX, that's it, Git. Let's move on Git. Git is a version control system that helps you check changes in your code during the development so that you have a record of what has been changed with the ability to revert back to specific version should you ever need to. Git also allows others to work with you on the code base and let change by multiple people to all be merged into one source. It is installed in your local device, which is device addressed directly to the one's computer. Moreover, Git commands are done through the command line typically. The command line interface, or CLI, is a program that processes commands to a computer program in the form lines or text. Move to the next one. What's a GitHub? GitHub is an online platform that works with Git to host your Git repository in cloud. While Git is a command line tool, GitHub provides a web-based graphical interface. It allows you to check your project and see the changes by made by your team and host on the site. This makes collaborate easy and seamless. Install Git is Git using your command line by clicking the link that we sent in the chat, or you can find it in the guide, and make the GitHub account by clicking the next link in the chat too, so we can actually start the sending our code to remote repository. Before using repo, let's figure out what repo is. Repo is an acronym of repository that contains all the code for particular project. So we can think of it as a folder for project. It will most likely be a folder containing everything you need for your project. When you have the repo saved on the device locally, it's called local repo. Actually, Git saves snap of how your files are structured and the content with them. If your files haven't changed, Git won't store the file as the new version. It will instead refer back to the reverse unchanged version. Is that cool, right? With committing is an action of making a snapshot. You typically commit the file after making change to them. Then when you commit files, they are saved to your local repository. This is like saving a Word document on your computer. To save your change to the remote repository in the cloud. There is separate command to do this. And Isabella will explain more about that.
Now on to installing Git. There are 3 different ways shown on the screen how to install it depending on which application you own. If you have Linux, Mac OS, or Windows, your options are listed on this slide. Another easy way to get Git installed is by installing GitHub Desktop, which includes lots of great features. You can download this from the GitHub Desktop website. So everyone, try installing Git by following your respective list, and I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and please don't be afraid to ask for help in the chat. All right, I hope everyone had enough time to do that. So now let's check if everyone installed Git correctly. So open the terminal on your device and try entering the command that's shown on the screen, which says git -- version, into the terminal. Comment in the chat and let us know if you got some output on the terminal. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right, now on to making a Git account. You will see on the screen just like the one shown on our slide. All you have to do is use an email and create a username and password, and then you're set to go. Now let's configure Git. To make sure your contributions have your name attached, enter the commands that are shown on the screen, and I'll give you all a few minutes to do that.
And by the way, when you're subbing in your name and your email, you don't need to actually enter the open, like the greater than and less than brackets. All you need is the quotation marks. I just wanted to mention one thing really quickly. Because everyone has different operating systems, what your terminal looks like or your command prompt looks like might not be the exact same as what you see on the slides. As long as the commands you're entering are the same, it should be okay. Like for example, I have Mac OS, that's my operating system, so my command prompt is actually called terminal and it's white rather than orange and black. So don't be intimidated if the UI looks a little different.
All right, now we're going to move on from configuring Git. So now let's try to make a folder on your desktop and initialize it. Once you enter the command on the screen, your screen might look like the example that's shown on the slide. Then you'll have a new folder on your desktop, and there will be a folder inside it called .git.
And as you can see in the screenshot, you don't actually need to enter the greater than and less than symbols, so those are just there as a placeholder for you to know that you're supposed to enter whatever name you want.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to adding a file to your repo. But before we start, make sure the directory you are in is your folder and that you created by checking the prompt as shown in the example. And once you have done that, enter the command that's shown on the screen. Echo will put the text or copy that what you wrote into the file that you specify using the greater than sign.
Okay, let's move on. File has different state in your repo, so they can modify state or commit. With modify, when a file is modified, this means that your file has been changed but has not been saved in your repo. It is like if you have a document like Google Doc, you have had make changes but haven't saved it yet, and your change cannot be seen by other people who are working on the same repo. With the state, when your file is state for commit, you have set it up to be saved officially to repo. When the file is state, that means they are marked as a change and will be snapped in the next commit and saved to the repo. With the commit, this is when the file is officially saved and stored to the repo locally. With the staying a file, your repo is modified. You, Now you have to state your file change. To do this, make sure you are in the repository that your file is in. If you have close to the terminal or navigate away, then tap git add or git add file underscore name.ext. It's so on the slide, so you can tap it in. In our case, you can do both. The dot is adding a file on files that had been modified. So if you had add more than just a file txt, just using this would be easier. Oh, now we want to commit our change. Tap in the terminal the following git commit dash and code the internal commit, adding a new file to the repo code. In this case, the dash m is called a flag. This is basically means that we want to add a short message with our commit. Your message should be detailed and describe concisely what you have changed. It should be less than 2,500 characters, though. So now you are done with committing your changes. So uh, to check the repo status, tap the command git status to see the status of your file, and then tap a git log if you want to see all of your past commit and when they were commit.
Okay, we're now going to move on to a little bit more detailed Git and GitHub skills. We've talked about collaborating on code and how we can simplify our interactions with our collaborators to make sure everyone's on the same page. We use this feature called cloning a repo to copy all the files and code that exists on the GitHub repository to your computer locally. You may be asking, why wouldn't I just download all the files myself? Well, when you do this, you just download the files and your computer has no connection to the remote repository. This means you can't push any of your changes and no one will be able to collaborate with you on your project. So to clone a repository from GitHub, we need a repository to start off with. Start by creating a new repository on GitHub. And we're gonna wait a sec to actually show you guys with a demo. So again, to start off, we have to start by creating a new repository on GitHub. And we'll need to give this a name. Okay, after we've given it a name, we need to decide whether we want it to be public or private. And for this tutorial, we're going to be choosing private. And we need to make sure you check the readme.md box to avoid any issues when cloning the repository locally. Now we're looking at our newly created repo. Click, and we're going to have to click create repository to create the repository. And then we're going to press code, then click the copy button to copy the repository link under the HTTPS tab. Now, I'll give you guys a second to do that if you'd like to follow along yourself and make sure going over the steps broadly. You create a repository, give it a name, decide whether you want it to be private or public, and make sure to check the readme.md box, and then code, and then copy the repository link under the HTTPS tab. And I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do all that yourself if you'd like to follow along. Okay, once you've gotten that done, we are going to switch over to the command line again, and we need to decide where we should store the repository on our computer. Make sure the folder you're going to use doesn't already have a Git repository in it. We can tell if it does have a .git file in it, and then we
are going to create a new folder and then clone this repo inside it. We're going to create a folder called ptc.git-tutorial, and then we're going to cd our way into it. And I'll give you guys a second or two to create yours right now. Okay, now all we have to do is use the git clone, then paste the URL from GitHub command in this directory. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to do that. And just as a reminder, the URL is the one we copied from GitHub just a couple minutes ago. Okay, great. We've cloned the repository. We've now created a new folder within the folder we just made with the name of the Git repo. In this case, the name of our repository is ptc-git-tutorial, as we can see on GitHub. We now have to cd into this new folder we just created to access the Git capabilities. Once done, we can do a quick git status command to make sure everything looks good. Now, if we physically look into the folder that was created, we can see our README and our .git folder. It might take some time to show up, but you can, again, do the git status command and check it manually. That's it. We just cloned a repository that once just existed online and now exists on our computer. And I'll give you guys a second or two to do those last couple of steps yourselves. Again, that is a git status command to check that everything is working well and make sure you cd into the folder. Okay, we're gonna hop back over onto the slides for a second and talk about branching. So branching is a way for you to make edits to your code without disrupting the main line of development. Using branches is like creating a copy of your code and then making changes separately from that main code. The default branch is the main branch, where any main developments take place. This is automatically created for you by Git. The main branches should only contain code changes you and your team have tested and are 100% sure work and how that is and know that it should be out there. Branching is called branching because you can think of it as a tree. The main branch is the root of the tree, and everyone else is working on their own branches, even within your own repository that you work on alone. It's common to have more than one branch. Your main branch might contain the code you know for sure works, and you might have a development branch, for example, where you store the code that you're still working on. So we're going to hop back over to GitHub. Actually, no, the command line, no. We're going to hop on back over to GitHub and do another demo. So how do we create a branch? Going back to the command line, we can do this by using the git branch, and then we're going to have to give it a name. So for this tutorial, we're going to call it development. And then we're going to go ahead and create a branch and give it whatever name you want. So for us, we're going to use development. We've created a branch, but if we run the git branch command, we can see that we're still on the main branch. And we can see which branch we're on because it'll have an asterisk beside it. We want to switch to our new branch and work on that one. We'll use the command git checkout and then the branch name that you've given it. So we're going to use development and to do this. Now, if you run git branch, we see we're on the new branch. I'll give you guys a second or two to do that if you're following along. And if you're unsure about any of the commands you just ran, you can look at the screen and follow along by replacing the development with the branch name that you've given your own. Okay, let's test out making some changes to our new branch that we just created. We'll create a file and then commit the changes to the new branch. Enter these commands one by one in the terminal, and I'll be pasting these into the chat so that you don't have to memorize them all, but for now, we have to do touch tutorial.txt, echo hi git tutorial greater than tutorial.txt, You might remember some of these that Ifra talked about a little while ago. And then the next one was going to be git add tutorial.txt. And the last one is git commit -m, and then in parentheses, no, quotations, commit on branch. And all these commands will be in the chat in just a second. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes.
I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry, just to add on to what Isabel's saying, basically, if we're just going to go through the steps again, touch tutorial.txt means that you're creating a new file, and because we're in the PTC-test folder, it's going to be created in there, and it's going to be created in our repository. And echo is just what you want on the actual file, and we want the phrase hi git tutorial on the tutorial.txt file we just made. And the next line with git add is just that we're adding this file onto our repository, because touch only creates one, but it doesn't necessarily add it to the repository. And this line, git commit, this is essentially what Julie said in the previous slides. It's saving this file to the repository so that everyone who's in the repository can see it and collaborate with it. And as we can see here, it was successful. And we're just double checking over here to see what branch we're on, if we committed to the right branch. In this case, yes, we did, because it's on development.
Okay, so we want to make sure that the new branch we just created is connected upstream to the remote branch. We need to use the following command, git-u origin, and then the branch name, so ours will be development, or git-set upstream origin, and then the branch name again, which would be development for us. Both of these commands are the same, so you can use either one. We only need to do this on our new branches so that we can push our changes to GitHub. By using this command, all of our changes will be automatically pushed to GitHub, as you can see in the output. Awesome. We've committed changes onto our new branch and pushed these changes to GitHub. Now, what if we wanted to make changes to the main branch? That's what we'll be discussing next, but I'll give you guys a couple minutes to finish that couple steps by yourself, and I'll paste the commands into the chat again. Okay, we're gonna hop back onto the slideshow for a quick second to talk about pull requests and mirroring. Or no, just pull requests. So we've talked about branches, but if everyone's working on separate branches, how do we rejoin all the parts onto the main branch when we're doing work on them and know that the code works for sure? We have to go through the process of making a pull request. This happens on GitHub and allows us to ask permission to make changes before we merge our changes to the main branch. To do this, we're going to use the following commands. And we're going to go switch back over to github.com again to show the demo. As we can see, there's a yellow box telling us that our branch has had recent pushes, and it's asking us to compare and pull request. Let's click on that now. GitHub is now prompting us to open a pull request. We'll go ahead and do that now. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll be able to see the changes we made compared to what was there originally. Looking at our stats at the top of this photo, we've made one commit and changed one file. We can see that we've changed what we've changed. We've added one line that says, hi, get tutorial. Now let's scroll back up to the top. If you were working with someone else and wanted to make sure they reviewed your code and changes before accepting the pull request, you could write notes for them with anything they need to know in the right box. And then once you've done that, the next step is to click Create Pull Request. Now we see we have one open pull request. Because we're the only ones working on this repo and we're sure we want to make these changes, we can go ahead and click Merge Pull Request and click Confirm Merge. That's it, we've done it. We can delete the new branch now if we want, but if we want to keep working on new stuff on this branch, it might be helpful to keep it for now. And that is it for creating a pull request. This slide might be a little bit too complicated for a beginner Git users, so we're going to skip over it for right now, but if you complete the feedback form that we'll send out in a bit, you'll be able to get the slides and you could work on this yourself.
All right, here are some general development tips for everyone. It's okay to Google things when you're unsure. That's completely normal. Even the most experienced web developers look things up when they are confused about something. And make sure to have a readable, well-formatted code because that is good code. And always keep your files well formatted and make note of any indentations and spaces. There are some resources for help and extra information on Git on the slide, but you can find these links on the Quick Start Guide. That's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed this workshop and learned a thing or two about Git and GitHub. Make sure to keep playing around with both of them and keep expanding your knowledge. Practicing will only make you better, and soon enough, you'll become a version control ninja. We will send out a feedback form after the event, so be sure to fill that out in order to get extra resources such as the slideshow, the recording, and the quick start guide. Make sure to follow PTC on all of our social media to keep updated on events and to stay in the loop. Thank you, everyone.